Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda and Steve. We're back again with a bit of a market update, a little bit about what's happening in the US, the GDT event for this week, and of course chart of the week.
Okay, so kicking around, I should sound enthusiastic.
You should.
Yeah. So US product output showed the effects of falling milk production, whereas cheese was a bit patchy. We've seen a stronger uptick in the other cheese category, with most food service influenced. And cheddar down a little bit, which was interesting, but that's been bouncing around. But we saw, continuation of fairly strong cuts into skim milk powder and non-fat output.
And you can see that over time. That's been the case for the last 4 months.
Probably going to continue because milk production is on. It's still, it's down and probably continuing to trend down. So that's going to remain the case.
Yeah.
Then US exports.
Yeah, this was interesting. It was a bit all over the place, really, wasn't it? Looked like there was some logistics issues affecting particularly skim exports to Asia.
Yeah, which have fallen a couple of months in a row. You can see at the right-hand side there.
Yeah.
We don't have cheese there, but cheese was quite strong.
Yeah, cheese is very strong, mostly due to Mexico. Also some more product into Central America. So obviously not the same issues faced there. Yeah,
that's right. And look at butter go. There is a very strong price advantage for American butter, but not much of it makes spec. But we have seen pretty strong growth. Compared to what they got to before, in the past, and go back, if you went back, some time ago, the total annual exports achieved were still quite a bit above where we are now.
Yeah.
So there's still some upside.
Yeah, and there's still pretty small numbers there, aren't they?
And meanwhile, other prices keep herring upwards.
Yeah, that's right.
And speaking of that,
prices.
Prices. So Europe had a bit of a bobble over a couple of weeks. We saw a bit of pushback against butter prices. That hasn't been sustained, and it looks like the shortages of fat are still quite acute. Over in the US, cheese market is hard to make sense of, with pretty patchy food service pickups with the difficulties with staffing. Obviously, that's still being talked about a lot. But we have seen barrel prices come back up, which is a good indicator, and no doubt Mexico is going to take some advantage of that. And then their butter market has also picked up strongly.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of shortness of cream in the total market, but no doubt exports are helping that.
Yeah, so some pretty strong price trends really in the background for this week's GDT, and added to that, what's happening in New Zealand for production. Yeah,
well, the North Island looks like it's drying out.
Yeah.
According to that map. We've had 3 months. It's been a long time since we've had a pre-peak La Nina occurrence that's dragged down production.
Yeah.
So we haven't had one of them since 2016. So this one's fairly sizable, down 4% over those 3 months if you add those together. That doesn't seem to worry the market very much.
No, the GDT price index did go up, but it wasn't a stunning event, was it really?
No, I struggle to find much interesting stuff here.
But I'm sure you found some.
Oh, there's some gems, absolutely. You can see not much going on in powders. Skim milk powder was a little stronger than whole milk, and that was mostly not about New Zealand. But the fats continue to surge, with Europe giving everyone a bit more headroom in terms of values. So just an update on some of those price movements to compare. Everything in Europe went up on those light blue bars. $500 difference in US dollar terms between European and New Zealand prices.
Yeah.
And butter differentials are not quite as much, but Europe has surged back up. So that's interesting. US sideways in a couple of categories that matter there. But this result undershot the expectations of futures by, again, quite a bit.
Yeah.
And those gaps increased from what they were at the last event. In fact, if you go back to where futures were 2 events ago, we're still, we're quite close to that. But someone's got greater expectations.
Yeah, and given the context, that's not surprising, is it? So what's going on?
Well, that's let's come on to that, because there is a shift in what's being
where people are buying.
Yeah, where GDT is being used for.
Yeah.
Demand at this event was a lot more subdued than we've seen the last few. Butter on average, AMF was above average, skim was good, whole milk powder was underwater in terms of the demand in the first 6 rounds.
Sure.
You can see how that has trended. So while we're bouncing around, average demand, the elevated price is all about fat and protein values, which are much stronger. So it's all relative, but really the demand event to event just keeps the price relativities, and we're still seeing it, generally trend slightly upwards in terms of whole milk powder. Skim milk powder was, I thought, fairly interesting. It's the first time since 2014 that we've seen such a discount to the New Zealand pricing.
Yeah, we've been used to seeing a reasonably large, as you can see in that chart there, a reasonably large premium for New Zealand product.
But over $90 price advantage for the European product versus New Zealand product. Probably not surprising given how tight supplies are in Europe.
Sure.
And US picked up as well. And on the right-hand side, this is something we've used a couple of times before, but that stronger buying in the Middle East and the widening gap in the top part of that chart of the discount that whole milk powder represents against the recombined value.
Yeah, certainly a continuing bargain to be had there.
Stretched right out, so that'll be supportive going forward.
Sure.
Expect. So coming back to this point you made earlier, which is a good point, that the reduced buying activity from China, and you can see it on a couple of charts here. On the right, showing the rolling average, and by all accounts, that should be, the market should be tanking, but it isn't.
It's certainly not.
Other regions have been buying well.
Yes.
Picked up the slack, as it were. But into the Chinese market, I've compared there the rolling average that's gone through GDT with the rolling average of total trade from New Zealand. Nothing to worry about here.
No.
We're just seeing a different channel into the market and a different way of buying. And that's for both powders. And look, if you look across products, you see this. There's a greater need for security going essentially back to the supplier, rather than waiting for a GDT event and rolling the dice.
Yeah.
So there's been much more locking in forward in these trends. Trade is continuing to trend upwards. The New Zealand trade into China in October was still favourable. Whole milk powder strongly up year on year. So that's, take it in context.
That's exactly right.
We're seeing a different set of priorities.
Yeah. So the bottom line is demand's still good. The fact that maybe GDT's underwhelming is not something to be worried about, really.
Yeah. Chart of the week, Joe.
Yeah, I thought we'd go a bit more big picture. The FAO has come out with their latest price indices for a number of food groups. And you can just see there the overall price index, it's going up really strongly just with these broad inflationary logistics supply issues that are being faced across the board in the food sector. Dairy's probably one of the ones that's not gone up quite so strongly, isn't it? And you can see there on that right-hand side, it's really oils that have gone up strongly year on year. For the latest month of that indices. So it's interesting times, isn't it, where we're facing rising prices everywhere. Dairy is actually maybe a bit of a laggard.
Yeah, not the standout. Interesting. Well, that's a good way to wrap up.
Sure.
Thanks very much for watching. We'll be back again sometime soon. Probably not again in 21.
Oh. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year then. We're going on holiday. We're really not.